Alright, so I want to bring everyone actually some good news, right? I think what I'm going to talk about in this video, as much as the title says the best and probably worst thing in JJK, I think that it is the best thing for 95% of players, and it is unfortunately the worst thing for the remaining 5. However, those remaining 5% are still going to eat that shit up. So it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to try to pass this off as a problem, okay? I just want to have a nice discussion about this. So, down below, I want right now you guys to give me your thoughts about power creep in JJK. You could stop the video if you want and just write your thoughts. If not, you could continue. It doesn't really matter. I would just love to hear your thoughts. I want this to be a very discussion-heavy video, and I heavily implore you to go down in the comments and leave a comment about power creep in JJK. Now, my personal beliefs on it, pause the video if you don't want to hear it before writing your comment, is that honestly, this is like overall, I've already talked about this, but in terms of power creep, it's the best game like that you could have for power creep in a PvE game, especially when you go to a game like Honkai Star Rail. I'm going to bring up Wuthering Waves too. Actually, this is a very good point I'm going to make. So if you go to Star Rail, you'll see that most of the new units are all more recent units. I don't recognize any of these units besides Sunday and Adventuring, right? And this Huoho, yeah. So like, to be fair, I want to make sure it's understood, not every, but most of the newer units are the ones on the top. Now, I'm not going to say this is the tier list, but Pridewind is the one I trust the most. I know it's not just one person, right? It's a lot of people that work on this. So I would say, like, you know, in general, right? Especially for the DPS, these are all very new DPSs, right? That's the point I'm trying to make. Now, that's not what happens in JJK, and that's amazing, right? That's amazing. We have it more like Wuthering Waves. For example, she came out like almost a year ago, and she's competing with units that are like a couple months old, which is amazing to me. I love it. A day 1 unit is the second best healer and almost like needed. We got a sub DPS that's like absolutely phenomenal, right? So like having units like Sanhua, Mortefi, Verena, right, still there, and having Havoc Rover up there is really nice. And that is the same feeling I get for Phantom Parade, but even more. Now, I'm going to throw in an element of chaos now. The one problem is also that, right? Because if you check it, the fact that Mei and Yuta are somehow in the discussion for around the same level is crazy to me, right? I am personally, okay, obviously I play Black Clover Mobile for the longest time, and obviously PvP games have much quicker power creep. That is to be understood. Now, I rather the Wuthering Waves approach over the Star Rail approach to where it's not power creeped, also because we barely get jack shit for currency, right? So they literally couldn't keep it up. Now, I would say though, it's starting to get a bit stale, right? In my opinion, it's starting to get a bit stale in terms of the meta, because once you pass, now, like I'm saying, this is a good and a bad thing. Like I said, for the 5% that really want that competitiveness, well, obviously this isn't the game for us. I'm just bringing up a point that this is just overall really good with a tinge of like negativity behind it. You'll see that like January skip, February skip, March skip, April skip, and then May, and then it's half Annie, right? So I personally, I would rather them give us more cubes, but also rather us summon on more units. That's how I rather it would be, right? Because I would want it to be more exciting. That also is biased by my opinion of wanting to showcase more hype units, understand that. But I would say it would just be more fun for the community, in my opinion, to have to get more units, and also like be able to get more units because they give more currency and have more units that advance the meta even a bit. Now, as of right now, it doesn't matter at all. Now, what's the reason? Every new unit they release is able to clear all the content, right? The problem right now is actually more so the content. But then when we get floors 61 to 80, then it's also going to become a problem of, okay, well, why don't I just use Yuta? Like, there's no point to me using the new units. So then it's like now they have to sell the character itself instead of the kit, which I personally am never a fan of, okay? It's too much of a reliance on the IP instead of trying to sell fun game design. In my opinion, that's how I see it. Let me know your thoughts on that down below. I love to have discussions on this. I think I'm approaching this in a very neutral light, but these are my opinions on it, where I think that having a unit like Mei be marginally better than Toji and Yuta is probably not how it should be, in my opinion, right? because Yuta on JP is over a year old, right? Just want to make sure that's understood, right? So that's the one thing that I see as a bit of a problem. And then for blue, like same shit, kind of. I mean, actually not really. Like Sukuna was the power creep, but like for green, like Muta's a bit better. But then hollow purple, like you could just use hollow fucking purple, right? And then same shit here. Like you don't need to get Zonji when Tinjo is doing almost the same shit, right? So then I want to bring in something I love, right? Something I absolutely love. And this is that the overall floor for the unit kit has gotten better. You are not seeing a single unit in 2025 besides this fodder unit be below S tier, right? Like no DPS is below SS. Any unit that was released as a DPS in 2025 is in SS, right? Like Maki, Mei, Muta are the 3 DPSs we've gotten in 2025, and they are all in SS, which is great. Then we go to support. Red Inumaki, the unfortunate thing is just that tower's too easy, so sweep is rated higher, and sweep he's not good in, but in tower he's great. But we got Inumaki, really good, right? Shoko, really good, right? So when you consider all of this, I do think that the game is headed in a really good direction to where you have a bunch of units that are all really good. So like I was saying before, they are not selling you the kits, but in the same light, now they're allowing you to use whoever the fuck you want, right? So that's a good thing, I guess, for some people. Now, I would say I would like some power creep. I'm just going to be honest. That's my personal opinion. You could disagree with that, and you are not wrong for that. But I also don't think I'm wrong. Now, why don't I think I'm wrong? If I said that 4 months ago when we just got global, I would say that my opinion had less weight. However, we are getting 5 monthly floors on global now, and there's a reason for that. People want more challenging stuff. They acknowledge that. So if Billy themselves have acknowledged it, I think my opinion on the competitiveness, quote unquote, matters. And then you go further. They added sweep. Very difficult content most people cannot clear. And now they're adding 20 tower floors on JP. Well, yeah, I mean, it does seem like they're very much leaning more into the quote-unquote competitiveness, or just the want to have difficult content. So I would say that some level of meta is what I would want going forward, and that's the one problem I want to bring up, is that's not really a power creep, more so that the floor has raised. The average level of unit, like, has increased, right? The lowest level of a DPS has increased. You are not seeing a unit below SS, which means the benchmark has increased, but the ceiling has not. I personally am just not a fan of this, right? But then you have to acknowledge, I have to acknowledge that, of course, you just don't get enough fucking cubes. This game is so shit in terms of the currency. So there's really not much they could do about it. So I think in the situation they have for the currency, they honestly do a good job. I just think that, honestly, like the title suggests, it is the best thing in the game, right? The fact that you could use year-old units and still clear. But it's also the worst thing for people who want any sort of challenge in this game, right? So that is the thing. Now, I would say, though, the game, in terms of the meta, 2025 meta, honestly looking a lot better. Like I said, DPSs and supports are both way better in 2025. So that's great. I just hope the new tower floors are going to be great. Let me know your opinion down below. Do you agree with me on my points? Do you not agree with me? Kind of to do a recap. Let's get over it. All right. Point number 1. Essentially, I do think that having units, new units be marginally stronger is not the best thing, monetarily speaking. I do think that leaning on the IP is just not a great thing. I would love for these kits to be super fun to play, like Blue Maki, one of the most enjoyable kits I've ever played, right? So that was a W. But then on the flip side, like I said, it's great that we have a very stable meta. I would just hope with this tower floors and with the half anniversary approaching, that we get an increase in the average power, and we could start having our average DPSs slowly start to creep top of SS into SSS, because that is what I want, right? Like, you could almost say that this and this, there's a gap, right? These 4 DPSs to the rest here, there is a gap. I will make that very clear. Like, you could even put all of these in S+, and only these in SS, because I would say this is like the top 4 in SS, and I would say there's a pretty big gap right here. I would just want more of the units to start being Zonji level, creeping in to Sukuna level. That's kind of my opinion on it. Anyway, I'm done. I mean, I don't have much more to say. I just wanted to have a nice little conversation today and kind of bring in the point that I think it is time for power creep. 4 months since our last big boom, right? And why else is power creep fine? Because they have free buffed units. And I mean free. Look, Jogo is literally, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's in the top 10 DPS in the game. A free unit's in top 10. So I think they're able to go a little harder on power creep in terms of bosses and in terms of units, because SP boosts allow us to be fine, which is great. And I think this is obviously, actually, I didn't even mention this, but I really think this is important. Because we have SP boosts now, I really think they could go more hard on power creep as long as they keep up with the SP buffs. That's my opinion. Let me know down below. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Love y'all. Bye-bye.